There will be times where you will want to cut down the brightness, the overall brightness of whatever your scene is, whether you lit it or you're in natural light. You have your f-stop, shutter speed, and ISO as your controls if you're working with flash. You have the power settings on your flash in order to control the brightness of that. But let's say, for example, you're working with continuous light and you need to match the shutter speed with your frames per second, and you don't want to use f16, you want to use a more reasonable f-stop or one that goes along with your look. So what you need to do is you need to cut down the brightness. The same thing with flash, is if you're trying to get a wide f-stop, 1.8, 1.4, 1.2 with your lens, but your flash will not go down to a dimmer or lower power level, what you need to use is something called a neutral density filter. So this thing I have in my hand is a neutral density filter, and at the very minimum it will block about 2 stops of light. This one may go up to about 8 stops of light. So what I'm going to show you what it does is this one's variable, so it has a ring that will turn. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to hold it in front of my face and I'm going to turn it, and as I turn it, I get darker. So it gets to the point where I almost disappear. It's not a polarizing lens. This is something completely different. And in polarizing lens, we'll do something similar, but that works more with reflections. Okay? So here we have a piece of equipment that you put in front of your lens, and it will allow you to control overly bright scenes. So how do you get this on your camera? Well, of course, it'll screw right on your camera. If you want to buy one, I own one of these. I own one that matches the diameter of the largest lens that I have. So the largest diameter front of the lens that I have is this one. It's 77 millimeters. So this will go right on my 77 millimeter lens. So, of course, if I line it up right, it will go on very nicely. So this is on my 77 millimeter lens, and it will control the brightness of any light that goes through this. So what happens if you own lenses that are smaller than 77 millimeters? This is one of my favorite lenses. It's the Canon Compact Macro. It has a front element that's only 52 millimeters. So how do I get this onto this without using tape and risking making a mess or breaking something? So what you're going to use step-up rings. So this is a series of step-up rings. The set that I own goes from, let's see, it goes from 37 millimeters up to 82 millimeters. So I took those two off, and what I left on are the rings that are for 77 millimeters, which is this. So I can screw this into the top. I'm not going to make it too tight because I have to be able to turn my ring, but I don't want this to jam on. Anytime you add filters, sometimes things jam onto or get locked onto the rings. And on the end of it, I have, and I'm just going to make sure, I have the 52 millimeter up to 55. So what we have here is it starts at 52, goes to 55, etc., goes all the way up to, in this case I left on the 77. I'm going to be able to attach the 77 millimeter filter to my lens that has a 52 millimeter opening. Okay, and that's how it's done.